Hey everybody, it's Andy. Welcome back to my weekly show where I help you build a career you love. Today, we're going to talk about working with recruiters and everything you need to know. And as a matter of fact, I got so much to tell you that I had to break this up into a series. So today we're going to talk about corporate recruiters, and I am going to give you a behind-the-scenes look into who they are, what they go through, how they think, what motivates them, because I want you to use this information and I'm going to give you a perspective and the tactics so you can turn them from what I'm guessing from what you think is a huge obstacle into a gigantic asset. So great to have you. Great to have you. And if you are wondering where I'm coming at you with this stuff, indulge me for a second. I am an international top 100 recruiter. I've recruited for more than 200 companies. I've written this gold award winning hiring book. I've worked directly with hundreds of recruiters. And every year for the last 15 years, my company, Mile Walk, and I have run a survey to human resources personnel, recruiters, and individuals in various hiring capacities, asking them loads of questions about what the market looks like, what they're doing, what they're happy with, what they're not, things related to their recruitment functions. I'm packaging all that up and I'm serving it to you today so it's insider stuff. I am stoked. So get your coffee. I got my Can I Help You mug today. If you're my peeps in Europe or wherever and it's martini time or wine time, get that. And maybe my folks on the West Coast, maybe you're still on your first cup of coffee, but great to have everybody. Let's get rolling. First thing we're going to do is we are going to define these recruiters so that everybody knows what it is that we're talking about. Can you tell we got a lot of stuff to go through today? All right, let's go with the definition of corporate recruiters. So we're talking about corporate recruiters. So who are these people? They're basically employees of the organization that they are trying to recruit you in. So they work for Pepsi or Coke or IBM or whatever it is, as opposed to a third-party recruiter or an executive recruiter or a search firm like Mile Walk, the one that I run, where organizations hire us to represent them and go out and recruit individuals on their behalf. That's for another video. But today we're talking about those individuals who work on behalf of the organization. They are employees. So I want you to understand these folks. If it's a small to medium-sized company, sometimes they don't even have a recruiter. Sometimes that's the HR person or somebody designated to manage that function. Sometimes they only have one recruiter. Sometimes there are larger organizations that have divisions. Each division might have a recruiter, or there might be specialists. They might be hiring a lot of claims adjusters. They might have somebody who just focuses on one position. So there are a number of different ways that these resources can be working in the organizations. You might not know which that is. It's almost irrelevant for our talk today. I just want you to know that could be the setup. All right, so that's first. But the second thing that I want you to know about recruiters is they have a number of goals, but for purposes of what I want you to understand, there are really two primary goals that they have. The first one is their primary goal is they want to fill the position quickly. So they got a requisition from a hiring official or a unit within the organization. There's a need for whatever reason. We're going to talk a ton about that. But for whatever reason, there is an opening in their company. Their first job, first and foremost, is to fill the position quickly. The second goal that they have is the candidate pipeline that they need to create in order to fulfill that position. So show progress. So what the next best thing to actually securing the hire is to make sure that you have a number of eligible candidates who are what we call, our jargon is the candidate pipeline. So if a hiring official sees there is candidates in the pipeline, the hiring official relaxes a bit to know that there's been some traction and that they're going to start interviewing, or maybe they're midway through the interviews or whatever it is. But the secondary goal has to do with showing progress. Now, I wrote you a little card here because I want you to burn this into your brain. Actually, I'd feel even better if you wrote this down or froze the video and took a snapshot of me right now, because personal preservation to the recruiter matters. They have to show progress. Just like any of you, no matter what your function is, no matter what you do, you have to show value and you have to show progress. Otherwise, what happens? You get fired. So for recruiters, they've got to show that they're making progress and that they're not sitting on their hands, no matter how difficult the search might be for the individual that they're looking for. Personal preservation. I do not want you to forget this. I'm going to repeat this 10 times throughout the show today and how it relates to what you can do to get a leg up. But remember this, they're human just like you. Everybody, whatever your job is, there's an element of I need to perform. Now, you might not be a political type, but it's still, you need to show that you're doing your job. And building up that candidate pipeline is one way that the recruiter can do that. Okay, now, I just got done saying that we've interviewed thousands upon thousands of people every year. We have employment surveys and we have hiring surveys. The hiring survey goes out to HR folks, recruiters, people that we know to be in hiring capacities that we've met over the years. We put it out on social media and people fill this in. And we want to look at what's happening year over year, what's the market look like, and so on. One of the questions that there's a whole section in there about the company's recruiting function. So for your organization, Mr. or Mrs. HR person or recruiter or hiring official, about the recruiting function, there are a number of things that we want you to evaluate. Guess what the number one and number two issues are that people feel, the hiring officials that is wrong with their recruiting function? So 15 straight years, 15 in a row. Here they are, number one and number two. Time to fill and number of qualified candidates. What does this mean? Time to fill, another insider recruitment jargon, and usually a measurement of the recruiter. The requisition is created. It's like days outstanding. So the rec gets put together on a certain date. How many days does it take me to fill that position? A lot of recruitment systems will track this stuff, and recruiters will, some of them will even be compensated on this. So time to fill. The hiring officials, by miles, that's their single biggest complaint. It takes too long to fill the position. Second, I don't see enough qualified candidates. We're going to talk about why that is here in a few minutes. But these are the single biggest complaints. So now you're getting an idea of what's happening, right? You got hiring officials. I'm sending my requisitions. My recruiters aren't filling them. They're not filling them fast enough. And they're never filling them fast enough. Now, there is an element here of you'll never be satisfied no matter how quickly you get the position filled. But you get my meaning. We asked them to sort of handicap their input for this, that we need you to be reasonable, right? You can't find an executive in 1 week. So that's what's happening. That's what the data supports. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about the mindset. Think about recruiters for a second. Just think. You might not know a whole lot about what they do, but think about who they are in the overall scheme of things. They don't, other than sourcing. I mean, truly. Now, mind you, and I'm sure there are some recruiters out there and HR folks who might quibble with me on this, but for purposes of illustration, they have no accountability with the ultimate hire because they're not the ones who actually make that decision. They go out, or maybe they don't even go out. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. And they are screening candidates and sourcing candidates from whichever mediums they're doing this, and we'll go through what those are. And they are screening the candidates and they are moving them into a candidate pipeline, and they are going through interviews with the hiring officials. And the hiring official is ultimately, he or she is the one who's going to make the decision, or maybe there's a little committee about who they're going to hire. But the recruiter doesn't have any input in that. The recruiter doesn't determine who ultimately gets hired. The recruiter most certainly does not have input on what you should get paid. Okay, so contrary to what you think, we're going to cover that one too. But they just don't have a lot of power. So from one perspective, right, they have no power. They really don't. But what do they have? What do they have? They actually have no power. That's about the only power they have. They have the ability to say no to you. They have the ability to knock you out. Now, I just got done saying personal preservation. They're taking their time to talk to you, and on paper, you look good. Why on earth would they want to knock you out? They don't want to knock you out, but they go through the motions of disqualifying you And usually you're the one who knocks yourself out. So they have no power, but they have the power to say no. They don't have the power to say yes. So let's talk a little bit about this. When you look at most recruiters, now I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of recruiters, and so I've gotten a pretty good sense of what they are. I've worked directly with them as a third-party search firm to interact with them. I've coached recruiters. I've taught recruiters. I've recruited recruiters. Most of them that work for corporations, okay, they want to go at this from the path of least resistance, as little effort as possible. Now, what does this mean to you? Well, if I had to guess, and I'm gonna say honestly that what I'm about to share with you is a feeling rather than a hardcore statistic, because this one would be a little bit difficult for me to capture. But 95% of all recruiters that I have ever met that work for corporations are what we call inbound reviewers. Okay, so what does that mean? They have resumes coming in, they have referrals coming in, they have people contacting. Basically, what these folks are doing is they're trying to pick the most qualified candidate from the candidates who are coming at them. Okay, and then 5%, I would say, give or take, maybe 5 in 100, have recruiters who work for corporations who actually go out to the world and try to find not the one who's the most qualified of who's come at me, but the one that is the most qualified of all of the people that I can find. So I'm actually combing the world to try to find a passive candidate to see if that candidate is interested in joining our company. That takes more work, as you can imagine. But I want you to think about this, and this is really important for you to know because you're going to have to leverage this. 95%, more than 9 out of 10 recruiters that work for corporations are doing nothing but sifting through resumes. And where are those resumes coming from? Everybody loves an employee referral. Who wouldn't, right? Jane Smith down the hallway, she came, gave me John Doe's resume. She loves this guy. And I'm looking at the resume, and yeah, that's all fine and good. So that's wonderful. What about this one? The applicant tracking system. You guys know how I feel about applicant tracking systems. They're a necessary evil, but I could just kind of sift through what comes at me. I got a lot of people just shoveling resumes into these applicant tracking systems. I'll see which ones make it through the system and into my inbox, and I'll take a look at those. What about this? Inbound emails. I like those. Too. Are you guys directly emailing recruiters enough? They like those. If you have a resume that matches what they need, they like that too. Why? They didn't have to do anything. They clicked your email open. They opened up your Word document. What about this? Go to an event, hang out for, half day, sit at the booth, let people come walking by, handing them their resumes, job fairs. Maybe it's a week-long event. Who knows? Any of this stuff requires absolutely no recruitment skills. None. They just sit there and they will field the resumes that come in. It's important that you understand these mediums because we want to expand the mediums that you actually use in order to get these positions. But think about this for a second. Now, I know some of you are first-timers, and we love our first-timers, and some of you are old-timers, and I'm sure all the old-timers here in my community will know what I'm about to say. This analogy of these inbound recruiters that actually are doing nothing but fielding resumes that are coming at them. You job seekers, this is the same thing for you. Are you the type of job seeker that sits behind the computer, looks at the job boards or looks at the corporate websites, sees what's available, and then throws your resume out there? That's no different. You're just looking at what's available and you're throwing your resume out there. But what would I rather you do? Be the architect of your career. Blueprint your career. Mark the route you want to take to get to where you want to go, not what's publicized and available, but what you are going to create as an opportunity for you. If you can do that, you're like the 5% outbound recruiters. If you're the ones who are sitting in front of the computer looking at job postings and only what's available, you are substantially limiting yourself in the opportunities that are out there for you in the market. So this all works both ways. So I wanted to put that in perspective for you. Now, when you think about the recruiters as they get your resume, now I don't care if you emailed it directly, if you networked your way in, if you were a referral or whatever, you met them at an event, you met them at a dinner, you met them at a whatever, speech, it makes no difference. The one thing that you have to know, and while this may be obvious to some of you, I think a lot of you overinflate the recruiter's ability to actually assess what you do. Okay, most of these recruiters, as in like 99%, don't know how to sell the product. They don't know how to manage the product, or the implementation. They don't know how to code in JavaScript. They don't know how to do the work breakdown structure when you're trying to get the requirements and you're doing the analysis and so on and so forth. So this is important for you to recognize, because a lot of you are spending a lot of time selling yourself in the wrong direction when you get into these screens. It is very, very important you recognize their lack of knowledge in what you do. And we'll go in, and when I give you the prescription of what I want you to do, this is going to become incredibly, incredibly important. So what do they do? To make up for their lack of knowledge? Keywords. When they get a referral from somebody, they open the resume and they look to see if you have the nomenclature and the specific keywords that the hiring official told them to look for, right? They're being fed a job description. They probably didn't write it. Or if they did write it, it basically was practically skeletoned out by the hiring official, who has to write specifically what she needs them to go and find. So they're looking for keywords. They look when they open the email. They program the applicant tracking systems for this. Keywords are your friend. Keywords are your friend. So what happens? They take a look at these keywords, and now you get an opportunity to talk to them, right? Because you know the keywords are all in good order. Now, they're likely to assess the cultural fit, your traits. Do you have good runs? Have you been, do you have these nice 3 to 5 to 6, 7, 8 year runs on your resume with the companies that you're recruiting for? But what are they trying to do? They're interviewing you. They looked at the keywords. You're now in the screen with them. They're looking to disqualify you, as I mentioned before. But I don't want you to give them any reason to disqualify yourself. They don't want that. They actually don't want that. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you're doing to disqualify yourself when they don't want to disqualify you. Remember, personal preservation. If I'm taking the time to screen you, I am saying it explicitly or I am saying it non-verbally that I actually think on paper you fit. You fit on paper. So now I'm either not going to like you because you're a bonehead, or because you're going to say something that's going to fall outside of the parameters that I've been given to screen for. Okay? They look to disqualify you, but they don't want to disqualify you. Why would they want to disqualify you? They want to move you into the process because time to fill, right? Number of qualified candidates and so on. So you need to be sharp. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about what they actually did. They already said your fit is better than my sniff test. And when I'm talking about a sniff test, remember, not familiar, I'm talking about a sniff test, and I'm not talking about the sniff test my dogs Harley and Ginger can do with the canine scent. I'm talking about a human recruitment sniff test, which is a human with like a bad sinus infection. Okay, so there's not a whole lot that they're really going to be able to tell. If you've got nice runs, it looks like you got career progression, you got the keywords in there, it looks like you know how to code and the technologies that they need you to code in. So you pass the sniff test. So what do you got to do? You got to make sure that you don't constrict yourself and you don't hurt yourself because you already passed the sniff test. You already passed the sniff test. So how do you constrict yourself? What's one of the first things they ask you? What do you expect in the way of compensation? What do I tell you? There's a video out there on this, right? Don't give them a number. Don't give them a range. Why? Because you can bounce yourself out of the process. You can bounce yourself out of the process. They do not want to bounce you. If they don't have information where they're certain they should bounce you, they will move you forward. They think in the affirmative, you think in the negative. Okay, so they want to move you forward. If you match on paper and you're nice and likable and develop a connection with them, they're going to move you forward. They're going to let the hiring official hash this out. Don't give them a number. What's another way that you can constrict yourself? Well, this one I actually want you to be honest about. They look at competition. So your competition could be your current company. It could be all the other companies you're interviewing with. So some of you, probably not all of you, get asked by the recruiter, Well, who else are you interviewing with? Are you actively interviewing? Or who else are you interviewing with? Well, there's some pretty good companies. I don't know if I'm going to be able to compete with those companies. So what I want you to do is I want you to share what's actually going on with you. You would like them to share a whole bunch of stuff that I'm going to tell you to ask them in a few minutes. You want them to be honest? I want you to be honest with them. You need to share what's going on with you. You need to communicate with them. But you also need to make them feel comfortable that while I'm interviewing with these other companies, I really want to work for your company based on the research that I've done. Right? You only know so much at this point, right? You're in the screen with the recruiter. So you want to make sure that you are overt about that. What's another reason that they could disqualify you? I don't think I'm going to get you. So maybe I'm one of those 5%ers. I reached in to you. You were nice enough and smart enough to call me back. We have a discussion. You're open to talking to me. You're not really looking. Or maybe you kind of like where you are. Maybe you're an employee referral. They're concerned about severability. Will this person actually leave if I give him an offer or her an offer? So that's what they're trying to ascertain up front. That's a big part about why they ask you about why you're open to leaving. Now, if you've already left your company, this is a moot point, right? But for a lot of you, this is very, very important. You need to be careful about how you articulate this. I've already given you ways to do that with the interview intervention book. We're going to talk about that. But this is what I want to make sure that you do. You never constrict yourself. What are a lot of you worried about? How to answer questions like, oh, tell me about a time when you organized something that was really, kind of chaotic or, kind of needed to be morphed into something. You should be far more worried about constricting yourself and making sure that you have good answers to their questions about your comp and that other stuff, as well as, don't get me wrong, I want you to be able to answer the questions about why are you open to leaving? Why are you interviewing with us? What is it about us that attracted you? What value can you bring? These are fair game questions in the screen, but I also want you to focus on all those constrictors that I talked about. And we're going to get into some samples, very specific examples when we get to the tactical part of this talk about what not to do. But a lot of that stuff is in this book, free everywhere in the world for $7 shipping and handling. I go through all those questions. Now, let's talk about what the recruiter knows that you don't know, that the recruiter would be happy to share with you if you asked, if you actually just asked. So these are some things that I want all of you to start asking right out of the chute, because you're going to have to use this information to make sure that you're successful in the process. Why is the position open? How many, I haven't engaged the chat yet. Can I get a yay or a nay? Put why open, yes or no. Do you actually ask this question in the interviewing process? Actually, let's do this for all 6 of these that I'm going to take you through. All right, why is the position open? Do you not want to know, did they just can somebody, right? Is the boss a psycho, right? You're growing? Oh, you don't have enough, you got so much work, you don't have enough people? Yay. Okay, why is the position open? Why is it open? Do you ask? Let me know. All right, that's one. Have you tried to fill it yet internally? Is there anyone in your company that you've considered or are considering? I want to know if I'm competing with an internal candidate, because you're going to have to do some funky stuff that we're not going to go into now, but you're going to have to be able to overcome this, right? So what are your assets that the internal candidate or candidates would not have, right? So have you considered that? I got 3 emails last week. Andy, I just found you because I was sailing along in an interview process. I thought everything was going great, and bang, at the last minute, they took somebody internally, and I don't get the job that I thought I was going to have. Right? That happens. What about this one? How long has it been open? How long? Why is this important? Well, on the surface, and most of you can probably digest this without a lot of insider knowledge, the longer it's open, the more desperate they become. But let me tell you what happens the longer something is open. So and Kara, this is probably for you too. This is a good data that we haven't even gone over yet. Less than 20 hours ago, I'm on a phone call with one of my clients. Her name's Joanna, and she is about one of the most delightful people I know. We've been working together for years. Just love her. Great company. small to medium-sized technology consultancy. Beginning of January, we started a search for them. She's looking for something specific, had a number of, not like crazy, but just a number of things that were really important. They had to have some consulting experience. They had to be good at senior project management. They had to understand how to grow accounts. There was a couple of things that were not crazy that she really wanted. Okay, and so we recruit for these types of positions. So we took this search. So now we're into February, right? So I don't know when you're watching this, but right now, it's 5 weeks later or so. I'm on the phone with her yesterday. We talk every week, kind of go over things. And I said, Joe, this search is kicking our butt. Actually, I use some different language, but you get the gist. And I said, look, I know we started with this many things, and we immediately made you kind of cut that in half. But now I need to know, and I gave her all the data. I told her what we were finding. We went through some stuff. I said, what can you live without? She says, well, yesterday, my team, they went to a client, they sat down, they were meeting with this new project manager that the company had hired a couple of weeks ago. They love this woman. She's a super go-getter. She's not a consultant. She works internally. And, I can live without consulting experience. I can live without consulting. 6 words, 3 seconds. She didn't just double the candidate pool for us. She quintupled it. So we start a search a month ago. We have certain parameters. Now what's happened is in one quick phone call, she changes the parameters. And she actually did a few other things that will make it easier for us. Not easy, but easier. But here's why this is important for you to know. What if you were one of those people that put your resume in her applicant tracking system 3 weeks ago and you didn't have consulting experience? Now, I asked her if she had any candidates coming in. She says, oh yeah, they're filling up the applicant tracking system, but I'm really not looking at it. I don't really know what's in there. That's what they pay us for, right? They pay us to go out and get the people. She doesn't have time to go searching that stuff. But if she did, and she passed you over 3 weeks ago because you put your resume in an applicant track system and didn't have the consulting experience, now what? Now guess what? Now you're actually eligible per her new requirements. This stuff changes every single day. This is what's happening. That's why you want to get a sense of how long it's been open and why it's been open that long. So, that's another thing. How about this one? If it's been open for a while, what has been missing in the other candidates that you interviewed? Are there any other candidates currently interviewing? By the way, I cut up a video the other day about what to do when there's multiple candidates in the process. Be on the lookout for that, in the next month or two. But what's been the issue? You need to get this information. Why? So you don't trip over this. So if somebody was missing a skill or they were not behaving a certain way, you make sure that you highlight how you have that skill or what you would do to build that skill, or you don't behave that way. This matters. You've got to ask these questions. I'm going to ask you, who are you interviewing with? You can ask me, what candidates are in play? Where am I? Where am I in the process? How are they doing? Believe me, this stuff will come out if you ask the question. How about this one? What's the actual key to hire? So, we just got done with this Joanna example. All right, think about this. Let's have a laugh. How many job descriptions do you see? They're like 3 or 4 pages long, which is totally ridiculous. They here's what you must have. Here's what would be nice to have. Here's what would be really nice to have. And then here's all the other stuff I want. And here's all the other stuff I want, and so on. All right, well, that's a bunch of nonsense because not everything that's listed in the kitchen sink is what they need. And what happens is, if you take a look at the very top requirements, up top there'll be like 2 or 3 doozies, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever. Of those 5, only 2 or 3 of them are really important. Okay, so you need to figure out what are the most important. For those of you who have been through, and I've done this in a number of videos and even in some video series, in my Job Search Masterclass and in the video that we released recently about how to choose the right job, we talk about your criteria. And you make a list of your criteria and you force rank that criteria, or you weight it, 10s, 5s, 2s, whatever. This is the same thing. The companies have that in their head. This is the most important. I cannot live without that. Otherwise, the person won't survive and won't be able to do the job. But these things, I can probably build them over a reasonable amount of time. Some companies make me laugh. They look for 6 months for somebody to try to get everything, when the fact of the matter is, if they'd hired somebody 6 months ago, the person would already have everything that they need. So, but that's what goes on. So you got to know that. How about this one? Where are you getting your people? Where are you getting the candidates? Why is this important? So I'm here sitting here with you, and you contacted me, or you responded to my email, or you plucked my resume out of the applicant tracking system. What other sources do you use to find your job candidates? Well, we've got the search for mile walk that we're using. We use employer referrals, we use applicant track system, we actually have an event coming up, and so on. Now, they're going to do one of two things. You asked that question. The recruiter's going to say, well, here's what we use, here's what we do. Or the recruiter's going to say, why do you want to know that? And all you need to say is, well, as you can see, I'm in the middle of my job search, or I'm interviewing, and I love your company, but if something doesn't work out, I'm always looking for different avenues that I might be able to circulate my credentials and possibly surface my job. That's true, right? You'd want to know that. So you just say that. All this information gives you a better understanding, and they will, in most cases, give it to you. They will. They will. You don't have it because you haven't asked for it. So I want you to start asking those 6 questions, among the others that I've given you insight to. Now, I want to talk about a few other things. When you think about them, let's get into like 6 tactics here that I want you to employ that I think will give you better results. Most of you, and I can tell this by the questions, I can tell this by the beefing, I can tell this in my private sessions and so on. Most of you look at the recruiter as an obstacle or somebody you got to get past. If you think back to a lot of the stuff that we talked about, remember, they want to move you forward. Preservation, self-preservation, right? Personal preservation, time to fill, all this good stuff. If they've called you in for an interview, on paper, as much as they can tell, you have the goods. Now, obviously, you're going to go through your technical screens or your domain screens or whatever that is, but they're not as familiar with that. So I want you to change your mind, change your mindset, and I want write this down on your resume. I don't care where you write it. They're an asset. They're not an obstacle. If you're on the phone with them, theoretically, you're qualified. Theoretically, they want to move you forward. Why are you not moving forward? Why are you not moving forward? In most cases, you're constricting yourself. You're saying something that are causing them to bounce you. Don't give them that. Okay? But it starts with how you view them. You will adjust your language. And here's some other things you can do. Why can't you just appreciate what they do and be overt about it? Listen, you know what? I can imagine you're probably searching for a lot of different positions, and I know, you'll never be able to hire as fast as everybody in your company wants. Hey, are you interviewing for any other positions? Are you recruiting for any other positions? If you want, I'd be happy to network with you. I might know people who you can reach out to and call about, that business analyst position or that project management position or that sales position or whatever. What's stopping you from doing that? Does that actually take any effort? I mean, is that actually going to cost you any effort or any points? No, it's going to help you. It's going to endear you to them. So just appreciate that they are probably getting browbeaten by not just one person, but probably a lot of people that they're recruiting on behalf of. Okay. Side stories here. You got to make your qualities shine in the screen, in the initial steps. Okay. Time out here for a second. For all you that come to the Andrew LaCivita resume writing masterclass, or you're in my workshop, or you're in my boot camp, or you're in my whatever, what do I tell you? You get that piece of paper, and your resume should answer the question, what happened as a result of me doing what I did? Right? Not the activity, not I ran the customer service department. What happened as a result of you running the customer service department? Did customer service improve? And so on. Now, the recruiter he or she, they can see qualifications. They can see accomplishments. But the tactics by which you went through to achieve those, they won't have a clue. Okay? Unless they're hiring a recruiter or whatever, or an HR person. But what can they detect? You know all those other things on the job descriptions that say you need to be a self-starter and you need to be motivated and you need to have good customer service skills and blah, 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 blah. Well, they can detect those and they need to hear about those. So you need to spend time in the screen worrying less about, tell me about a time when you organized something and created something out of thin air or whatever, and you need to be figuring out, how do I make my qualities shine that another human being who does not know what I do will understand, appreciate, and respect and want in his or her company. So focus on this. Make this a big part of your prep. And then what? Talk about what you want, not what you don't want, and do it in a manner that does not constrict you. So let's be really specific here, because this is what happens and this is why you get bounced. All right, so I want a boss who is supportive. That's good. I don't do well with micromanagers. That's bad. Okay, so now the person is thinking in their head, oh my goodness, Susie is a total micromanager. This person is going to hate her. Okay, constricted, bounced, you're out. Or they're nervous. What about this one? I sat down with my wife and she and I talked and said, divorce happens when I travel 60%. 3 nights out a week, divorce. 2 nights out a week, I get to keep my marriage and my house and my dogs and my kids. Okay, you're in an interview. The recruiter says, okay, how much are you willing to travel? Or the job requires 50% travel or 60% travel. Your response is not, my wife's going to divorce me, my threshold is 40. Your response is, I'm open to travel. And you hash it out down the road. Okay? Don't think in terms of constricting. How about this one? We get this one a lot. I'm leaving my company because I want to be the CIO. And I'm the VP of IT. And I can't really move. And the CIO doesn't look, he's in great shape. He's not going to die anytime soon. So I go to another company and they say, well, why, what do you want? You know, why are you leaving? Or what do you want? And you're not, well, I really would like to be the CIO. And that's why I'm leaving. Constricting. What's wrong with, I'm looking for more career development opportunities that help me grow these skills. This is the part about you're not even thinking about this, because when you are under duress, you will revert to your most natural state. The way you think it through in your head when you're stressed is the way it will come out of your mouth when you're under pressure. So you need to rewire and retrain yourself to know not to say that. Okay, it's very, very important, because what's going on is you're pissed, right? I didn't get the promotion. I want to be CIO. I'm not going to be anytime soon. They promised it to me. Then they hired somebody from the outside or whatever. That's what's going on in your head, and that's what comes out in the interview, even though it doesn't sound like that in your head. So you need to be really careful about that. This one, I know they may not be good at it, but you need to be good at it. You need to be in touch with the recruiter. You need to be sharing the right stuff the right way. Hey, I have another interview. It's coming up next week on Tuesday. I will let you know when that is over, how it goes, and what my next steps are, so that you are informed. Okay? It is important that you do that. It is not putting pressure on the recruiter. It is giving the recruiter data that she can do something with. If you surprise her and she loves you, and you come back on Wednesday next week and you say, I love that, I'll take that job, she's going to be miffed, because she'd say, well, hang on, we'd have had you come in on Monday instead of Thursday. So you need to communicate. Trust me, they will appreciate it. Your tone and the manner in which you do that will count. All right, this one, I'm ending with a bang, and I love this one. This is my fave. And I want you to yell in the chat if you've ever done this or not. I'm going to remember that I did this at 11:39. One of my favorite Steve Harvey speeches is, you have not because you ask not. Have you thought to ask that recruiter for help to prep after you went through the screen? Okay, you're going to go talk to the hiring official. Have you asked the recruiter to help you prepare for that? So, true story, I have a one-on-one coaching client. His name's Paul. He actually engages my coaching for high performance, not job searching. So, a couple years back, 2-3 years back, he got a new job. On the first day he started, he signed up with me to help make him the best salesperson he can be. A couple years down the road, that's today, he's now number one in his unit. He got a call late last year from Salesforce, the technology company. They wanted him to, corporate recruiter calls him up, outbounder, 5%er, calls him up, says, hey, would you like to come in and interview? Or would you like to have a phone screen with me and we'll see if this is a fit? He says, sure. Has a call with her. Then he calls me and he says, hey, Andy, it's been a month or so, but I wanted to let you know this thing popped up with Salesforce. And I said, okay, that's great. He said, well, I had a call with the recruiter and this is Monday. I'm supposed to come back on Friday and I'm going to have a 4-hour session with the people, with 4 people, one right after another. I said, great. So we talked through some stuff. I said, hey, will you make sure that you ask the recruiter to prep you? He said, what do you mean? I said, ask her if she would spend some time with you on the phone to let you know specifically what they're going to be looking for. He said, okay, fine. So later that day, he reached out to her. I get a text. He said, yeah, I'm going into the office. She blocked out 30 minutes for me to come in and visit with her to prepare. Okay, great. They prepare, goes in on Friday, crushes it, gets done, calls me. And before I even got the words, I said, I know you're going to say, make sure I got to come back next Friday and I got to give a presentation. So he said, I know. I already asked her if she would help me prepare for that to make sure that I'm highlighting the things that I'm supposed to be highlighting. So I'm going there Tuesday. She blocked out 45 minutes so we can go over this stuff. And then I'm thinking, Paul, maybe this girl's got a thing for you because this is pretty generous of her, but I'm thinking, all right, good for you. Now, that may sound nuts to you, but let me give you a different way to look at it. This woman probably likes him for the job. She needs to fill the job, probably needs to fill a lot of these jobs. Now, she could spend 30 minutes prepping him so that he does well and shines, or her alternative is, I'll spend 30 minutes looking for somebody else. Which do you think she'd rather do? Which do you think where her focus is, and where her focus is on the outcome is she's going to put her energy into making the outcome happen that she wants to happen. So she's going to prepare him. Now he has to go in and do well, but wouldn't that help? Now, not every recruiter is going to spend, an hour with you over the course of your process, but would you take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to get some insight in some stories around parts of your resume that you really should highlight or that will go over well with this particular hiring official or that particular person, or what the internal customers are that you're going to be supporting? Hey, can you tell me what their biggest problems are right now? Those kind of things. The recruiter, it's good stuff to ask. They want you to know this. Wouldn't it be great if you knew that they were having trouble on the manufacturing line and this was causing blah, 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 so they need this optimized and so on? You have not, because you ask not. Ask for help. They want to help you. The problem is people don't look at them that way. But if they've got you there, they want you to go through. That's their best possible outcome. And when you start changing the way you think about them, you'll start changing your results. So I hope that serves you. 43 minutes, and I love this topic, and I hope that gave you a different way of looking at this. Now, there's a lot of stuff I have on the YouTube channel that you can go check out, how to answer questions and all that good stuff. But this was really about perspective, mindset, getting behind the scenes, getting an insider's perspective on what they're going through so you can use that to turn them from an obstacle mental obstacle into an asset. All right, if you're loving this, click the little the thumbs up button.